Hello guys, so welcome to episode 2 of our job portal application in Angular. Now, before I ended yesterday, I realized there was an error, but I was too tired to sort it out, but I figured it out. And so you see, if I come to the form, I just click on in any field and this happens. So this is definitely a bug, and this is being caused by this. In Angular, we don't say click. That directive is ng submit, right? Okay, so that it's still. So I think it's also the button. This button here is the issue. So that button, it has type submit, but then here it has type button. So this shouldn't be the case. It should be type submit, so that the submit will refer to the action of the form right here. So it will call this method. So if I do that, oh, wait, and that's still happening. That's strange. Maybe I need to, oh, no, is this, probably the application stopped running. Yeah, so I was looking at the older version. Let me, and the application should now run fine. I'll just refresh it. Okay, so now it is working fine. Can put in the information I want, click submit, and it is working as we defined in the component file. We said if we click on submit, I mean, right now we are not looking at going to the database and getting the form or the validation of the form. I will do those in another episode. For now, we are taking it slow. Okay, so that is done. The next thing I want to do is to implement this particular page, the My Jobs right here. So I'll close out of that and I'll come back. I'll close the jobs. So what I'm going to do, because I'm supposed to do the same boxes like this, so each company will have the jobs it has created, in its account. Later on, this won't be visible on the front page. This will be visible on the user's page. So like the companies that are listing their jobs, this is where they will find the jobs they are creating and responses and how many people have applied and all that stuff. That will be implemented later. But for now, we want to populate this with jobs, right? And we are going to use the similar cards like this. So I will go in. I have my jobs right here, and I will fetch the data for the jobs. So we are going to use the same jobs for now. And I'll say is an array of job type. And initialize it as an empty array. And then I'm going to come here and say this dot jobs is equal to the fake jobs. So as you can see, the fake jobs have been imported. And the job, if your IDE doesn't automatically do that, you have to go in and import this manually. But if your ID does it, you don't need to hassle. Okay, so we have the jobs, and so now we have to go to the HTML whole the template side. And so since it's the same thing as this, I could just go to jobs list and just copy the entire thing. But this is not good coding practice. It's not good development practice, because now you're doing things, you're creating a lot of code unnecessarily. So the best thing is to create a component and you just call the same component, job component or job card. So to do that, we are going to, you remember the nav, we are also going to go to components and create a job card. All right, so I'll click that. Like I said in the previous video, to get this, you need an extension, and it's called Angular Schematics. I think it's this one right here. So you need to install it. If you don't have it, you have to go to the terminal and, just run commands to create that component. However, this is much easier. And I want to do this so that I can show you the other process that I talked about, where we create a component, go to app modules, and tell the application or the brain of the application about it. So right click on that. And it is going to be a job card. So it is created, but right now our app's brain needs to know about it. So I'll come here and import it. Job card. There it is. And I also need to add it in the declarations. Otherwise the application won't know about it. Okay, so I'll close that. So right now we don't want to go in again and create everything like we did here, because it's just going to be a similar page. Instead, we have created that job card. So if I go back, I want to get just this card here and keep reusing the same card. So to get it, it is in the jobs list. This, right? So I'm gonna copy it, and then I'll come back. I'll close out of it. If I come back to the job right here, I will go to the HTML, and instead of that, I'll just post this, right? So, but right now our application or our job card doesn't know about jobs or job, right? And in fact, we won't be iterating over jobs because it's just this one card, right? We are just creating a template of how a card should look like. And so right now it doesn't know about a job. So let's tell it what a job is. And so we go to the component folder and we declare a job, which is of job type. Press tab and it automatically import it all. You can just come in here and import that job interface that we created in that file, if you remember. So, but however, TypeScript expects us to give a value for when we declare a variable. It expects us to give it a value. If we don't give it a value, we have to tell it that it can also be undefined, right? So we don't just leave it. TypeScript is very strict and it won't accept. So yeah, that's fine. So let's go ahead and I mean, right now we have a job. Okay, we've told our component about a job, and If we go back to the job card right here, we can see it is still giving us an error. Okay, so it's saying the object in the job card, you can see the error. It says the job card object is possibly undefined. And so that basically means we have to show you that it can either be undefined. If the object is non-existent, then it will return undefined. And so we need to tell it to allow undefined. Okay, so now that is done. And so we go back to my jobs right here. We are not seeing anything, nothing has changed. And so to get something here, we'll go back to that page. We have the jobs defined, right? And if we go to the HTML, so let's get rid of this. And so right here is where we are going to bring in this card, and we are going to iterate over this card for all the jobs that we have. So to tell it about this card, we get the selector of the card, if you remember. And we tell it that we want to use the app job card, right? And so you can see it has a structure, but it has no data, because the data, you put this right here, my jobs, because the data is right here, right? But it doesn't know about, we are calling the card. And so we need to tell this card about the data. So before that, how do we iterate over this data? So remember in jobs list, which is right here, we say ng4, let job of jobs, and then we tell it about this, right? So now we are also going to do the same thing. We're going to say ng4, let job of jobs, right? Okay, so we do have now all the components for the data. I mean, the 4 jobs that we have in our file, right? But then they are empty. So how do we get this data here? So to get that data, we are going to use a directive that is called input. So Angular has 2 directives. One is called the input, and one is called the output, all right? So the input is what we are going to use here. First of all, we need to import it, but because I have IntelliSense installed, and you type it like this with @input, right? And you can see I have imported it. It comes from the Angular core package, right? So you can see it's a decorator. Actually, it's a decorator that marks a class field as input property and supplies configuration metadata. The input property is bound to a DOM property in the template. So it is an input property. And so we are telling this component that you will accept input from a different component. When this is called inside, when this app job is called inside another component, we'll have to pass a job object. We'll have to tell it what this is, and then it will input the data. So we go back to my jobs, and we say, so we use that bracket, the square brackets, and we say that a job will refer to a job, right? And so what job is this? So this is a job defined as an input in a card. So we're saying every time we declare, we mention this card somewhere, we will put this job. And here we are telling it that this job here is referring to this job from the data. So if we enter that, you should see now our data gets populated with the right data that we need. However, we just need to just design the container for this so that it looks like the other one. To do that, I will just go. I'll just go to jobs list, and I'm just going to copy. I'm just copying just the div. You don't want to waste time, typing each one all over again. So I can just go in here and copy those, because that's just a container. That is just CSS properties. Those are just CSS properties. And that's one div. And that's another closing div. Right, so now we have our card looking exactly, we have our page looking exactly the same as this. However, I'm just going to change a few things so that it looks a bit different, so that there's a bit of a difference. So maybe blue. $100, just to show that these are different pages, right? So you can see for my pages, but this will be different. So if someone is viewing their job, well, if you're the one, you have your company and you're posting jobs, the options that you want are not to apply for the job. Maybe you want to have options to either edit the job or delete it. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the job card and add different options, right? So if I go to the job card here, I have that button, but I want to add 2 more buttons. All right, so one button is one is for VJob, and this button will just be on the home page where people can apply. But for my jobs, we want to add edit, all, delete, right? So there's a button. So let me just add some styling so that they are expanding across the card. Okay. Just push them in front. I just add a class. I'll make this a flex, and I'll say justify between. So that kind of lays them across. Okay, so but let me just change their color so that they are different. So instead of blue, this will be gray, and the other one will be like gray. Okay, like that. And just want to use the same color. Okay, and also their links will be different, but for now, I will leave this link. I'll remove his links. I will edit those. I will add those later on, because now they will instead go back. Okay, so now this is a job card, but the problem. Okay, so this is a job card, right? And now that we've created the card, if we go back to the home page, again, we need to use the same card now, right? I mean, there's no use of creating a card and yet we are hard coding stuff here. So I'll go back to the jobs list right here, and I'll also change this to use our card. And so I'll say, what is the tag of our card? It is app job card, right? You can just remove everything here. Oh, okay, this is my jobs. I want to go to the jobs list. Just remove everything here. Put our job. So we are on the home page now. If I refresh, we just have empty cards. So we are going to do the same thing that we've done the other end, which was to tell which is to bring in to tell our job card what it is going to iterate over. So that is ng4. Let job of jobs. So guys, remember we have the jobs list right here. So we are iterating over these jobs right here, right? Okay. So let job of jobs. So now that we have the jobs, you can see, but we also need to tell it what kind of data we are talking about, because we know that app job will always have a job. The job card will always have an input of a job. So now that we are calling it here, we need to add that input of it. And so the job will refer to this job here. Okay, so now we have the same thing, but the challenge now is that the buttons on the front end are the same on the back end. So, I mean, assume this is like the Amazon website, and you go on to shop and you're seeing options to edit and delete listings or items. It doesn't make sense, right? So this should only be seen by the person who owns these products or who is posting these jobs. So let's customize our job card to have that ability. To do that, we'll go back to the job card, and we are going to define some more input variables. So you're going to say input, and so you're going to start with apply button, and you're going to say it is equal to false, right? We could have defined the type. Say it is Boolean, because TypeScript always wants us to define what type of data we are working with. It doesn't like ambiguity. So also the edit button. Say it is also a Boolean, false, and the other input will be the delete button. This is also a Boolean value. The default value is false, right? So now we are saying that what I want to do is to say that for where I'm going to call this card, I will say that if the delete button is true, then I want to show this button, right? And if edit is true, I want to show this. So at the my job section, I will show these two, and I remove apply because you're the one posting a job, so you definitely don't need to apply. What you did is to edit your job or delete it. For the person who wants to get the job, they just want to view the job, right? Okay, so now that that is said, I will come to the job card itself, right? And I will say where I'm adding these buttons, and here I will say if ng if. So this is another directive, okay? Another Angular directive. It's called ng if. So if apply button is true, then we are going to show the button, right? The same thing here. And actually, you know, before I go to the rest, if I just show you right now, you can see that the apply button is gone because you're saying if it is true, but we have said that when we defined it, we said it is false, right? So when we call it here, it is taking the false value, but I will show you where we make it true and it shows. So this is how we are going to control these buttons, right? And justify between is nice, or using flex is nice. The flex property is nice because when they are two, they just spread across. If there were four, they will still spread across, right? So that has a lot of functionalities, and that is part of CSS. So also we are going to come here and say ng if edit button is equal to show it, if not hide it. And so right now it is false because we said it is false when we defined it. So if I click enter, you can see it's gone, right? And it's the same thing even on this page and even on this page, right? See, same thing. So I'll also come here and say ng using the same directive, edit the button if it's true. So now all our buttons are gone, both on the home page, right? Both on the home page and even on the My Jobs. All the buttons are gone. Okay, so how do we add them? If we go to the home page right here, because we've told our card that it should expect all these values, these input values, right? So if we go to the jobs list and we say the apply button, if we make it true, now it shows up right on the home page. But here on My Jobs, it doesn't show up because we have not called it, right? So you see, if you go to My Jobs, there's nothing there but home. It is there. So from home, we only wanted to add this, and you can see it is working fine. Okay, so we go to My Jobs, and then we're going to add, from here, we're going to add the edit and the delete button. So come here to the My Jobs. Let me just close this, we no longer need that. So to My Jobs, we are going to say edit button is equal to, right? You see, it is appearing here. See, oh, why is it appearing trace? Why is it bringing this? Edit button. It shouldn't automatically call the delete button. Oh, okay. I guess it is allowing it because I put them. I think, yeah. So this is supposed to be delete, not edit. Okay. So now we'll just have to tell it to show up. Okay, cool. So now that is done. So My Jobs page is done and Grow page is done. So this is good because I believe it has showed you how to create a component and reuse it on different with different templates, which is very vital to how Angular works. So that is modularity, which is very important. You want to reuse the same things, okay? And talking of reusing, there's a lot of things that we can still improve in our application. For example, when we call jobs here, right now we are calling the jobs from a local file, but if we are calling them from a database, or if we are using a lot of checking values or a lot of checks and handling the data in different formats, changing it, this could get lengthy. And so imagine if you're calling this in over, like for big applications, like over 20 components or 100 components, and you're doing the same thing over and over. That is not practical. So what we want to do is to create a service to call jobs, right? And also call a job. And you're going to see why that is. When we go to edit and delete, we don't want to be calling job again over and over again. So for that, we are going to create another Angular functionality called a service. And to create a service, we go to the app and let's create another folder called services, right? And in here, we will press this and generate a service. So this service, let's call it a job. And so you can see it automatically adds job.service. Okay, so this is the only file we need. This is a test file, which is a spec.ts. Okay, so if this is a service, how do we define a service? So that, for example, let's go to our pages. So that here, like, instead of calling a job every time, you know, in each component, even here, we just call a service. We take the service and then we just call a service and it gives us the data. So you can see we are doing a lot of repetition even here. Same thing, even here. So the standard procedure is to create a service. So create, let's go on and create that service. Now that we have created our job service, let's define the two methods that we are using so far. So far, we are fetching all data and populating, but then we are also fetching a single file of data. So when we go here, we just get only one object of the data. So we are going to create two methods. And so one will be called get all jobs, right? And so this will return an observable, and you'd have to import observable from RJX, right? And so you can see when I just hit my tab button, it was automatically imported. If it doesn't do that, for example, you type it in and it doesn't know what this is, you can just click on it and see view quick fix all. You will just leave a cursor there and just hit Control and dot, and it should give you options. So we are importing it from RxJS. I think this is a better way of working with data. We really don't need to do that. We could have just done something like void, and then we would have just returned the data and said const jobs is equal to fake jobs. This could have worked, but I prefer to use an observable because right now we are fetching data from a local file, but later on we are going to be fetching data from the cloud, from Firebase. So it's good that we just get used to one way of working with things. And so if we are fetching data from the cloud, we are going to definitely have to use an observable. So it's going to be an observable of type job, of an array of a job, and we also need to import the job interface, right, from the fake jobs file. Okay, so we are returning an observable, and so we say return of fake jobs, right? So this of is coming from, I think, the RJX package as well. Does it come from? Let me see. Yeah, it's also coming from the RxJS package. A package has a lot of things like map, subscribe, you know, a lot of methods that we would need. Okay, so this is one method for getting all the jobs. So I mean, before I create a method for getting just one job, let's go and see how this works, right? So we are going to go back to our pages, go to the jobs list here. So we want to fetch the data using this method. So going forward, we shall just be calling this method instead of, again, doing the whole thing afresh. This looks a simpler code here because we just have a local file, but if we're getting it from Firebase, you'll see that it's a little bit longer code, and you wouldn't want to write the same code here and then the same code here and then maybe like hundreds of places. So you want to create a service. So if we go back to the jobs list, and instead of this, we are going to import the service that we've created. Do we call it job service? And so we are going to do a dependency injection and just inject it here. So I'll call it service, job service. And so how do we use it? Right here, this dot service dot get all jobs dot subscribe. So we subscribe to that promise that is returned. Then we get that data that is returned. And so using a callback function, we say this dot jobs will be. So we get that data and assign it to the jobs right here. And so if we do this, you should see we get our data back. Nothing should change. Exactly. So nothing has changed. We are still getting our data right here. So I'm using observables because, like I said, it's easier. I mean, going forward, we are going to be getting the data from the cloud. And, like almost all applications that you create, you'll be getting data somewhere from the cloud, all from a different server, all from a different database. And so observables are very good because they are monitoring the change in data, and they have, that it has all functionalities to handle, the data, if it's a stream of data, or if it is continuous data, stuff like that, all real-time data. So that's important to use that. So we've used that in jobs list in the home page. So let's also use it here. So that since we've created it. So that is in my jobs. Where's my jobs? Right here. Let me just close this too. So my jobs. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing instead of fetching data like this. And don't be like, why are we writing longer code when we have smaller code? If we are fetching this data from Firestore, this will definitely be longer code than what we are going to write. So we are going to also import the service and the interface of our data. Okay, we already have it imported here. So we use dependency injection to call the job service. And so here we say that this dot service dot get all jobs dot subscribe use a callback function to assign the returned data to the jobs array. So something here. Okay, so now we are using our service that we've created here. So now we also need to go in here where we are calling a single job, even on this page, and we create also another service for getting a single job. So to get a single job, I'm going to create another method called get job by ID. And this will take an ID, and our ID is a string, and it will also return an observable of type job, right? And we need to say there is a job all undefined, right? Okay, so okay, so now we are going to return a job, but let's first get the job itself, right? So we say that const job will be equal to our jobs that find a job whose job dot ID, which is this ID right here, is equal to ID. So we are looking through. So this ID actually is this ID is the one we are referencing here. But right here we are saying, we are telling it that go to this array of jobs and find a job whose ID is the same as is right here. So now that we have that, a job. Okay. So our get job by ID service method is done. So we are going to go back and use it, especially here. And so also here in the jobs, when we are editing or deleting, we shall use the same method. So in the view job, I'll go to job details, this page, right here. So we get the ID. And so after getting the ID, we are going to use our service. We've created the service, but what we need to do right now is declare this variable as an observable. And to do that in Angular, you just add this $sign to say that this is an observable. So we have to clearly define the type. I think observable is not imported here. So let's import it. Okay, so we say that the job of type, and a job which is a type of observable job, all undefined. All right, so it may be an observable type job, all undefined, right? And so now we come and we say this dot job will be equal to this dot service dot get job by ID, and we pass in the job ID, right? Oh, okay. I get why it is doing this, because there's a high chance, or there's a chance that the job ID may not exist. So the TypeScript wants us to handle that. So we can say argument of type string, that is not assignable type of string. So it is saying that there's a chance that it may return null. So we need to add a check saying that if the job ID exists, then only should you go ahead and fetch the job. And I think this is important because there's no reason why you should go and call a service if the job ID doesn't even exist, right? So that is handled, but we have an error, and the error is coming from the template, I'm sure, because now the template needs to have another directive called ng if. So if the job exists, right? Say Okay, so because now an observable works with a sink, right? So we need to add, this is called the pipe, right? So since we are calling it as an observable, okay, so that clears it, because if it is unobservable, it needs to have this pipe that converts it into an async, and then is it able to clearly format the data, because the data may come in a different structure, especially if you're getting it from the database. It may come as a promise, and so you need to change it here using that async. So this works fine. So now we need to also go to the contact and use the same service. So job contact. Okay. So job contact right here. So we are going to add another dependency injection for the service. We need to import it right there, and then you also need to define this job as an observable, and we need to import observable. I'll just type it and it will automatically import it. So observable of type job, right? All null. So, but it can also be, undefined. It can also be undefined. So I'll just click on that. Control dot gives me options, and it is imported, right? So let's get this, because this isn't how we call the data, but I'll just comment it out just in case you need to keep seeing it or see the difference. So I'll say this. First, I need to check, because we are dealing with observables, that even the ID exists. And this is, like I said, this is good. There's no reason you should, because with if your data is in the cloud, it means every time you call data from the cloud, you're being charged. So imagine if this is an application of 1 million users who are using it like every day, and each person is calling the data is going to the database even when it doesn't exist. So you need to do those checks in the app, which is very good. So we're saying if the job ID exists, then only should we get this job. This dot service dot get job by ID, and we pass the job ID. Right, so you should have our data now, but then you get an error because this is an async functionality. It's more of like a promise. Let me close this job details, let me close all this and this. So I'll go to the template and say just render this form, right? So that's why we'll use the ng if directive, saying that if the job exists, sync as job, then only should you even bother rendering this page. I think I did save. Did I save? Job does not exist. Jobs. I'm getting an error. Let's see what it is saying. think it's possibly undefined. Oh, I think I see where my problem is coming from. This should be up here, right? That should clear our problem, and it does. Right, so I was calling it in just this div. I'm supposed to call it in the entire template. All right, so that's good, guys. We have everything we need so far, except that I don't like the fact that this form stretches all the way. I want it smaller. Yeah, that's what I want. I want the form to be smaller. Let's make it LG. It's a little bit bigger. Okay. Yeah, so my form looks fine. This is really not about design, it's about learning how to work with different components. So, yep. Okay, so that's looking fine and everything is working fine. Now, in another video, we are just going to create these components, and this will work with React Forms as well, because, for example, when we go to edit, we want to have a form pre-filled with this content so that a user can easily, the person can easily edit them and update. All right, thanks guys for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or any suggestions.